This week is about self-ownership. This is something that I had to grow to learn as an adult. But the truth is, you already own the most valuable property. Your thoughts and sensations, your internal world, these can't be divided, they can't be shared, they can't be given away or transferred. They belong to you alone. This isn't motivational fluff, this is logical fact. See, most of us were programmed from day one to hand over the keys to our lives. From our parents, teachers, bosses, experts, the system. We're told to follow rules, not create them. Jobs reward you for doing what you're told. But here's what they didn't tell you. You already own the most fundamental property there is, yourself. Your thoughts, yours alone. Nobody else can think for you. Your sensations, yours. Nobody else can feel them. Being able to recognize that you already possess what you've been searching for is what this is all about. This framework has 4 parts this week: taking ownership, building your decision filter, reclaiming authority, and then becoming anti-fragile. Each one builds on the last. So over the next few slides, I'm going to show you exactly how these 4 parts transformed my life. Part 1, about stop being a victim and taking 100% responsibility. Part 2 was about building a decision filter so you're not making 1,000 choices when you could just make 2. Reclaim your authority from your bosses, from experts, and government officials is what part 3 covered. And part 4 is about building systems that don't just survive chaos, they get stronger from it. Let me break down what each part means in real life. There's a simple mindset shift that separates people who feel in control from those who feel controlled. And it's taking 100% responsibility for your life. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And you start asking, what can I learn from this? You quit waiting for permission and you start making decisions. You stop expecting systems to save you and you start building your own solutions. So here's what actually this looks like when I got sober. See, when you start using substances, your development stops. When I was 33, coming out of that decades-long drug fog, I had to face this truth head on. And I quickly realized that I had the mentality, the emotional intelligence, the critical thinking of a 15-year-old boy. That was when I started drinking and started dabbling in drugs. Sorry, Mom. And it stopped me from developing because I started escaping from the consequences, at least so I thought, of my actions, right? Oh, I don't care, whatever. And the only way I was going to be able to improve upon this when I was 33 and now sober was that I took responsibility for that. And to take responsibility in order to develop those aspects of myself into adulthood. That's where I came up with holistic living. Physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, digital well-being that is only taken through personal responsibility and what I call a regenerative lifestyle. But then the realization hit me hard is that I had deficiencies in all those areas because they were never developed. My wife and I, we both became recluse. We didn't fit in the party scene we were in anymore. And I had to explore who and what was I. I mean, really. Take away all these masks that I was wearing and the chemicals I was escaping with. When I came out of my drug fog, that's when I hit reality. And every emotion I was forced to then feel. Every consequence of my behavior had like an immediate feedback mechanism to the actions that I just took. And I had to deal with them. And having a girlfriend, then a fiance, and now a wife, she was my mirror. I couldn't fool her. I couldn't keep hopping around my friends pretending that everything was cool when I was with my wife, because she knew everything. She knew the good times and the bad times. And she was going through her own growth. And we just didn't feel like we belonged in any social scene anymore. So luckily we had each other, and we were able to give each other, an ear, understanding, and explore these things with one another. But I came to the realization that, when we would get into fights, as we know, the thing is not the thing. The inside is reflecting the outside. And before, it was either the man or the corrupt system that was, keeping me down. Or, I'd blame on a person, right? My boss, who's just a jerk, or that coworker who keeps, picking on me. Anybody that I could justify blaming, but they weren't the problem. I was. And that realization, that's what set me free. I remember after getting sober, my brain was hit by a tsunami of choices that I'd been avoiding for years. We were trying to go to the store and eat a cleaner, diet, and we chose to go gluten-free because if you didn't know, like a lot of the wheat and gluten products in America are sprayed with glyphosate. They do that just to help with the drying process of the fields. It's ridiculous. And we didn't want to expose ourselves to these pesticides. So if you've ever gone to the grocery store and tried to shop without eating gluten, then you'll know what I'm talking about here. Everything has gluten in it, at least everything in the middle of the store. So we had that. I remember that first time, like we're going into the store and we were taking things off the shelf, reading the ingredients. Nope. Oh, that's got gluten. Oh, nope, that's got wheat. And I was ready to like pull my hair out of my head, because we were there like literally for like an hour and 20 minutes trying to figure out what the heck I could even eat. Turns out, the good food is around the perimeter of the grocery stores. But I had to learn that. And it was a major decision overload that we were in, because we were trying this new thing, all these habits of like, oh, just grab that off the shelf. Oh, I recognize that. All that stuff had to be inspected and questioned just to figure out what the heck we could eat. It was really overwhelming. And that's when I realized we needed a system. So the decision-making filter helps with decision overload and moves it into a system that you can use. And I have decisions that are really simple nowadays. Trying to understand as I define my values and trying to make decisions to live by those values, clarified what decision I was going to make, right? Because if I just went to the grocery store and I was like, I'm hungry. Well, this is easy. I can just eat it out of the box, right? I don't have to go home and, cook it up and make a healthy meal. I can just, sedate my hunger right now. That is sacrificing your value in order to, do something easy. So by defining your values, by defining your principles, it makes decision-making stupidly simple. See, you just ask, is it aligned with my principles? Yes, no. Is it aligned with my values? Yes, no. Seriously, things get real simple real fast when you have these in place. And next week, we're going to dive a lot deeper into this process with the holistic self-assessment. Now, part 3 is about reclaiming your authority from everyone trying to run your life. Your rights, if you did not know this, I didn't. Your rights are not given to you. They are inherent. So just recently, there was a fire restriction in my county, but I chose to examine the risks and have a fire for my men's circle. I looked up what the consequences were, and I accepted the consequences and had a fire. It was in a fire pit. It had rained, right? It wasn't a big deal. The fire department could come out and tell me to put out the fire, and they most likely would have given me a warning for the first time. And the second time would be probably a fine. So I understood the risk and I chose to do it anyways. It's not super dry, like I said, and it was like just going into fall. But I had made my own decision on accepting the risk, and I lit the fire anyways. I made my own call. Even though it's not what I was supposed to do. Just because someone wears a fancy title or a costume doesn't mean they have special rights that you don't have. Good people ask questions. Questioning experts became critical during the pandemic. No longer is an expert ever worth not scrutinizing or questioning what advice they're offering. Just because they're an expert does not mean that they're always right. When I was running the marketing agency and saw ChatGPT for the first time, I didn't have a PhD in computer science, and I didn't wait for permission from anybody to go start learning and teaching about AI. All the formal experts were still writing papers about whether AI would ever be useful in the marketplace. Meanwhile, for the last 3 years, I've been helping clients save hours each week and putting AI to work in their businesses. Which brings me how I built my business. See, I was just started testing tools and prompts and ChatGPTs on my clients, the real client accounts. I made mistakes, I learned, I adjusted, I tested again. But this is how you improve, by getting started. Just last week, a funnel I created for a client that was part of their workflow broke down. They sent me an email. Hey man, what's going on with this thing? And I would have been sweating bullets. Just being like, oh my gosh, I can't look weak. I can't look like, I made something that broke. But just because how it looked, I would have, been in a lot of stress. But I was able to calmly go out to my office, jump online. I found the issue, found out that Notion, the one of the softwares that I was using, had made an update and broke the API connecting these two softwares. Found a forum in the help section of the software, and they were working on it. Meanwhile, there really wasn't much I could do other than relying on my backup systems that I already had in place that was manually moving this data from a form to the client so that they could do the transaction. And so for 3 days, I just stayed in constant contact with my client, letting them know that I'm keeping an eye on this. And I was just manually making sure the data was like getting here to there. There was no catastrophic failure, just a learning opportunity with owning it and being transparent in the conversation. Client was cool. 3 days passed. They fixed the API and it started working again. And I then was able to tighten things up while I was in there. Now, part 4 is about becoming anti-fragile. Because building systems that don't just survive chaos, but actually get stronger from it, just like I talked about. There are 3 responses to stress. Fragile, that break. Robust, that resists. And anti-fragile, that benefit. Fragile are things that can break under stress, like a champagne glass, right? Person who's never had to solve their own problems. The smallest thing will just kind of shatter their reality, and they have to like ask people to help. Robust individuals are things that can resist stress, but they don't change, right? A steel beam. Somebody who's just survives each crisis, but never actually grows and gets better from them. I think you can think of some people like that, right? But then there's anti-fragile people. And that's those that benefit from stress. Your immune system, after fighting off a virus, gets stronger, gets better, understands that virus, can protect you next time. A business that learns from every failure, boom, that much stronger of a business. A person who uses those setbacks as data for the next attempt, right? Juicy data that you get to learn from just by failing and owning it. And there's opportunities everywhere. When I came out of my drug fog, right, I had to try new things left and right in order to figure them out. And so there was plenty of opportunity for me to grow and develop and learn. Now, I make less mistakes, but that is because I have gotten really good at owning them and learning from them and making things right and keeping cool while it happens. Those anti-fragile mindsets have more to gain than lose from just randomness. And every shock is an opportunity. So you get to welcome these things, which completely changes your attitude about them. Here's another example of what this looks like. In this whole, taking responsibility for everything in your life, food is a big one of them. And the best way to get clean, healthy food is to grow your own garden. My wife, she's an excellent green thumb, and I live on a multi-generational farm. And when I first met my wife's mom, I did not like tomatoes. Then I tasted a tomato off of her vine, and my mind was blown. The difference between store-bought tomatoes and a tomato from the greenhouse that didn't have to travel on a truck or pass through plastic to get to us. And seasonality is like a real thing that you should introduce to your diet. There's a certain time of year that tomatoes come out and are ripe, and we enjoy them when that happens. Same goes with our meat. We hay our field, and that hay goes to feed the cows at the farmer house down the street. And then we butcher that cow, and it goes into our freezer. And then that meat is what we eat. It's fed off of our grass, and so we know what the animal was fed. And that animal was not pumped full or not pumped full of jabby jabs and pesticides, eating crappy food. And so it's the closest way that we can get to the source of our food. Ends up being way cheaper, ends up being way higher quality, and it ends up tasting amazing. So learning how to be anti-fragile is a way that we're able to take responsibility for our food system, as well as gain all these skills doing so by, figuring it out. Deliberately exposing yourself to discomfort. I do that through doing cold plunges. Just did one last night. Now, I heard this phrase and I aim to live by it. To live in discomfort and visit comfort. That makes the human experience way stronger. I like to do a sauna and cold plunge because that is the most uncomfortable you're going to be feeling in that day. Everything else compared to it is pretty mild. But it helps my nervous system just chill out. Helps my brain activity just calm down and be zen. And helps me be able to stay cool and calm when things go crazy. This contrast helps me stay cool when the real chaos hits. Now, we learned this that your labor belongs to you alone. Your labor is an inalienable property. It is the product of your self-ownership. When you don't have clear principles and values, you end up wasting your labor on things that drain you. Your body and mind are the mechanisms through which you express your preferences. They're an extension of yourself. This means your time is your property, your energy is your property, your labor is your property. And once, as I said, we've taken responsibility for our food, and this is where the responsibility of what to do with that comes from. Once you produce a harvest of food, once you grow the plants, you can't just pick them all and throw them in a pile. You have to preserve them. You have to put them to work. You can can them, you can make sauces, because they're only good for like a window of time throughout in the year, right? So you have to take the responsibility of learning what to do with them once you have put the effort and energy into growing something. But it is so much worth it. Our food is now delicious, it's pesticide free, it's cheaper, and we know where it comes from. So again, checking off all our values and principles. This is what it means to grow your own labor and your results. You own your labor, you own your decisions, and the moment you take radical ownership, you take back control of your life. When I was 33, I couldn't blame my parents, couldn't blame the church, couldn't blame the system. My thoughts were mine, my choices were mine, my mess was mine. And that's exactly what set me free. Society is set up to take advantage over people that do not claim their ownership of their lives. If you do not, the layers of society, the matrices, will assume that it can control you because you let it. And that's one of the hidden layers of the matrix, right? Is becoming aware, taking responsibility, and then saying the most powerful word in the universe. No. Know yourself, and no, you may not do that. You own you. You are now going to act like it. So now it's your turn. Stop asking permission and start acting like the owner you already are.